Lily had seen every kind of patient. The ones who screamed, the ones who wept, the ones who said nothing at all. But the man they brought in that stormy night wasn't like anyone she'd treated before. His white shirt was torn at the shoulder, streaked with blood, and his eyes, dark. Steady, didn't flinch even when she pressed the gauze against the wound. "Hold still," she said. Voice firm but soft. "I'm not used to people telling me what to do," he muttered. A hint of arrogance laced with exhaustion. "And tonight's your first lesson." The nurse behind her bit back a smile. Lily kept her gaze focused, steady. She didn't need to know who he was. But the nurse whispered anyway, just loud enough for curiosity to spark. "That's Ethan Cole," she said. "Cole Enterprises, he's practically a billionaire." Lily's hand paused for a heartbeat, just one, before she resumed stitching the wound. "He's a patient," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "That's all that matters." Ethan's lips curved slightly. "A patient, huh? I've been called worse." His voice was rough, but his charm slipped through the cracks like light through broken blinds. Lily didn't respond. She couldn't afford to. Rules existed for a reason, and she'd built her life on them. When the last stitch was done, she stepped back. "You'll need to stay for observation tonight." "I don't stay places I don't own," Ethan said, standing a little too fast before pain shot through his shoulder. He winced, a flash of vulnerability that cracked his facade. "Then you'll make an exception," Lily replied. "Because right now your life doesn't care how rich you are." He looked at her then, really looked. "You don't seem easily impressed, Doctor." "I'm not here to be impressed. I'm here to keep you alive." He laughed quietly, something soft and unfamiliar slipping into the air between them. For a moment, the storm outside wasn't the only thing that felt electric. That night, as she filled out his chart, she noticed the way his name looked on paper, neat, powerful, oddly human. She reminded herself it didn't matter. Yet when she walked past his room an hour later, she found him awake, staring at the rain. "You're supposed to rest," she said. "Couldn't sleep," he replied. "Too quiet." She tilted her head. "Hospitals aren't exactly peaceful." "They are," he said. "When you're used to noise everywhere else." Something in his tone, that quiet ache, made her chest tighten. He wasn't just another name in a file. He was a man who looked like he'd forgotten how to breathe when no one was watching. The next morning, Ethan was gone. Against orders. The bed was cold, the sheets untouched. Only a note remained on the table, written in crisp handwriting. "Thanks for the stitches, Doctor. I owe you one." Lily sighed. She told herself it didn't matter. People came and went. He was just another storm passing through. But deep down, she knew, some storms never really pass. They linger, quietly, in the corners of your heart. If you were there in that moment, what would you have done? Be honest, comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit like to prove that compassion still matters. 3 weeks passed before Lily saw him again. It was a quiet afternoon. Sunlight streaming through the high glass windows of St. Grace as she finished her rounds. Her day had been long but ordinary, until she heard that voice again, low and familiar, floating through the corridor like a song she hadn't realized she'd missed. "Dr. Hart," Ethan said, standing at the reception desk. "Looks like I needed another lesson." He was smiling, the kind of smile that disarmed people without warning. This time he wasn't in a suit. Just a dark sweater, sleeves rolled, a sling supporting his arm. He looked more human. And somehow more dangerous to her peace of mind. Lily's heart skipped before her brain caught up. "You ignored my medical advice and disappeared. I should file a report. Would you, though?" He teased. "Or did you secretly hope I'd come back?" She exhaled slowly, trying not to smile. "I don't do hope when it comes to patients." "Then let's make me something else." The words hung there for a beat too long. Lily looked away first, grabbing his file. Follow me. I'll check your stitches." Inside the exam room, silence wrapped around them, the kind that carried 1,000 unspoken thoughts. Her fingers brushed against his shoulder as she examined the healed wound. Warm, steady, alive. "You healed better than expected," she said softly. "Maybe I had a good doctor." Her lips parted, but no sound came. For someone who lived by control, she suddenly found herself lost in a moment she couldn't diagnose. When she finally stepped back, Ethan asked quietly, "Do you ever take breaks, doctor?" "Work doesn't leave much room for them." "You should try it sometime," he said, grabbing his coat. "Life happens outside these walls. I like it better inside." He smiled again, not smug this time, just knowing. "Then maybe someone needs to remind you what it's like out there." Lily almost laughed. "You think that someone's you?" "I think you wouldn't stop me if it was." Before she could respond, a call came through the intercom. "Emergency in Ward C." She left without another word. But Ethan's gaze followed her until she disappeared around the corner. That night, long after her shift ended, she found herself staring at her reflection in the dark window. She tried to name what she felt: irritation, curiosity, fear, but none of them fit. Because beneath them all was something she hadn't felt in years. Days turned into weeks again. She didn't see him, yet his presence lingered like perfume on air. Then one morning, a delivery arrived, a white envelope with her name written in delicate ink. Inside was a simple note: "You said you don't take breaks. Tonight, change that. A C." And beneath the words, a small card for a charity gala hosted by Cole Enterprises. Lily's pulse quickened. She told herself she'd ignore it, that it wasn't appropriate, that nothing good ever came from breaking rules. But when the evening came, she found herself standing in front of her mirror, wearing a navy dress she hadn't touched in years. Her reflection didn't look like Dr. Lily Hart. It looked like someone who remembered she was still a woman beneath the white coat. The ballroom shimmered with crystal lights and laughter. Ethan spotted her the moment she walked in. His expression softened, surprise giving way to something gentler. "You came," he said quietly, "just to tell you I can't stay." He chuckled. "Then I'll make every second count." He offered his hand, and for a moment, her rules wavered. They danced, slow, hesitant, like two people learning each other's rhythm for the first time. For Lily, it wasn't about the music or the crowd. It was about the way his hand rested lightly on her back, grounding her. Safe, yet thrillingly unsafe. When the song ended, she stepped back quickly. This was a mistake. "Maybe," Ethan said softly, "but some mistakes feel worth it." Lily turned to leave, but he caught her gaze. "You spend your life saving others, doctor. When's the last time you saved yourself?" The question hit harder than she expected. She didn't answer. She COULDN single quotes T. Outside. The night air felt heavier, filled with questions she wasn't ready to face. But for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted to hide from them either. The next morning, the hospital corridors felt heavier, or maybe it was just Lily. She'd barely slept, the memory of that dance replaying like a scene she couldn't erase. Every step she took, every patient she greeted, carried echoes of his voice. "When's the last time you saved yourself?" She pushed the thought away. She had patients waiting, lives to care for, and no time for distractions that wore tailored suits and knew how to make her heart race. But life, as always, had its own plans. Ethan Cole returned again, not as a patient this time, but as the hospital's new investor. His company had decided to fund the cardiac wing expansion. When she saw him walking beside the board director, calm and confident, Lily felt the ground tilt slightly beneath her feet. "Dr. Hart," he greeted with a polite smile. Like their last conversation had been nothing more than professional small talk. Her pulse spiked, but her tone remained steady. "Mr. Cole, to what do we owe the honor?" He shrugged lightly. "You saved my life." I thought it was time I gave something back." The board clapped, impressed. Lily, however, wasn't. She waited until the meeting ended before approaching him in the hallway. "This isn't gratitude," she said quietly. "This is interference." He looked amused. "You call it interference, I call it interest." "In what?" He met her eyes. "You." Her breath caught, not because she was shocked, but because part of her had been waiting to hear it. She stepped back quickly. "This isn't a movie, Mr. Cole. People don't just fall for each other between surgery schedules and investment meetings. Maybe not. But people do meet for a reason." Lily exhaled, shaking her head. "You don't understand. I've been here before." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Ethan frowned. "Been where?" "Too close," she whispered. "Too involved." He studied her, not the confident doctor, but the woman underneath, the one who had walls built from old scars. "What happened, Lily?" he asked softly. She wanted to walk away. Instead, she found herself saying, "I once trusted someone I shouldn't have. A colleague. He said all the right things. Until it cost me my reputation." Ethan's expression darkened. "He hurt you." "He taught me," she said quietly, "that some rules exist to keep hearts safe." For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of hospital machines filled the silence between them. Then Ethan said, "And yet, here we are again, breaking them." Lily's lips curved faintly. "You're impossible." "I've been called worse," he said, echoing the words from their first meeting. It made her laugh. Small, genuine, unexpected. The sound seemed to surprise even her. Ethan's eyes softened, as though that single laugh was the rarest thing he'd ever seen. From that day on, he became a quiet presence in her world. Some days he dropped by to check on the wind construction. Other days, he left coffee on her desk with no note. He never pushed, never asked for more. He simply stayed in the background, steady, patient, and slowly, Lily began to forget why she'd built those walls in the first place. One evening, she found him sitting alone in the hospital garden, the city lights flickering beyond the glass. She hesitated before joining him. "Long day?" she asked. "Long life," he said with a wry smile. "Somehow money fixes everything except loneliness." She looked at him then, not as a doctor, not as a woman fighting her own rules, but as a person who understood what it meant to feel empty, even in a full room. "You don't seem lonely," she said softly. "That's the problem," Ethan replied. "People see what they expect, not what's real." The honesty in his voice cut through her defenses. She reached for his hand before she could stop herself. "Sometimes," she whispered, "real just needs someone to see it." He looked down at their joined hands, then back at her. "You're breaking your own rule, doctor." Maybe it was the wrong rule. The words slipped out like a confession, and for the first time, she didn't feel afraid of them. After that night in the garden, things between Lily and Ethan shifted, not drastically, but quietly, like the way dawn replaces darkness without asking permission. Their conversations grew longer, smiles came easier, and sometimes she'd catch herself waiting for the sound of his footsteps in the corridor. He never crossed the line. Not once. But his presence filled the empty corners of her life she hadn't realized were still hollow. One evening, while reviewing patient reports, Lily received a call from the receptionist. "Dr. Hart, there's a man asking for you in the lobby. Says it's important." She frowned. When she arrived downstairs, Ethan stood there, holding a bouquet of white tulips, her favorite, though she'd never told him. "How did you?" "Lucky guess," he said, smiling softly. "Or maybe I pay attention." She took the flowers hesitantly. "You shouldn't be here, Ethan. This isn't appropriate." He finished for her. "I know. But life doesn't always wait for permission." His words made something flutter in her chest, fragile and real. "Why are you doing this?" Because for the first time in years, he said, voice low. "I feel something that money can't buy." Her throat tightened. She wanted to tell him to stop, to turn around, to forget whatever this was, before it became something she couldn't control. But instead, she whispered, "You make things complicated." "Maybe complicated is just another word for worth it," he replied. Before she could answer, a nurse rushed in, a patient in critical condition. Lily dropped her bag and ran, leaving him standing there under the lobby lights. For hours she worked, her hands steady even as her heart raced for reasons that had nothing to do with medicine. By the time she finished, exhaustion had dulled everything, except the ache that came from knowing Ethan had probably left. But when she stepped outside, he was still there, sitting quietly on the bench, waiting. "You didn't have to wait," she said. He smiled, eyes tired but kind. "You look like you haven't eaten since morning." "I brought food." The takeout bag in his hand made her laugh softly, a sound half gratitude, half disbelief. "You're impossible." "Persistent," he corrected. They sat together in silence, sharing food beneath the flickering hospital lights. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt seen, not as a doctor, not as someone who always held things together, just as herself. She wanted to keep that moment untouched, unspoken, but the world, as always, didn't stay gentle for long. A few days later, her supervisor called her in. "Dr. Hart, there's been talk," he began cautiously, "about your association with Mr. Cole." Her stomach dropped. "Association? Some staff believe you've crossed professional lines. You know how strict the board is about fraternization with donors or former patients." Lily swallowed hard. "We've done nothing inappropriate." "Maybe, but perception matters as much as truth." "You're a brilliant doctor." "Lily, don't let emotions ruin that." She nodded silently, though inside her chest, her heart cracked like glass under pressure. That evening, she found Ethan waiting near her car. He looked at her face and knew something was wrong before she even spoke. "They're talking," she said quietly. "About us." He stepped closer. "Then let them. We know what this is. It doesn't matter what we know. The hospital board could suspend me. Everything I've built could vanish." He clenched his jaw. "So what? You're choosing them over yourself?" "I'm choosing what's right," she whispered. He stared at her for a long, painful second, then said, "Sometimes what's right isn't what keeps us alive." And before she could answer, he turned and walked away into the night, leaving the faint scent of rain and heartbreak behind. Lily stood there for a long time, her hand trembling against her chest. For someone who saved lives every day, she had no idea how to save her own. The days that followed were gray, not because of the weather, but because something vital had drained out of Lily's world. Ethan didn't come to the hospital again, and she buried herself in work, pretending not to notice how much quieter everything felt without him. She told herself it was for the best, that this silence was safety, that distance was discipline. But every night, she found her mind drifting to the way he'd looked at her, not like a man chasing a thrill, but like someone who'd finally found something worth fighting for. And she had let him walk away. Weeks passed before she saw his name again, not on a chart, not on a donation plaque, but on the hospital's emergency admission list. Ethan Cole, severe cardiac event. Her vision blurred for a second. She didn't remember running, but suddenly she was in the trauma unit, pushing through nurses and calling his name. "Get me his chart," she demanded. He lay there, pale, breath shallow, monitors screaming a symphony of panic. For the first time, Lily's hands shook. She had seen death before, too many times, but not like this. Not attached to the heartbeat that had once found rhythm next to hers. "Ethan," she whispered, leaning over him. "Stay with me. Do you hear me? You don't get to leave like this." His eyes fluttered open weakly. "You still break the rules," he murmured, a ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. Tears blurred her vision. "Stop talking, please." Hours passed in flashes of lights and orders. She fought harder than she ever had, as if every breath she gave him could bring him back. Finally, the monitors steadied, a weak, stubborn rhythm returning. He was alive. Barely, but alive, when they moved him to intensive care. Lily stayed by his side, ignoring protocol. Ignoring everything but the rise and fall of his chest. Later that night, the cardiologist approached her quietly. "His condition was triggered by stress," he explained. "He's been pushing himself too hard, too little rest, too much pressure." Lily nodded numbly, guilt sinking deep into her bones. Because she knew, part of that stress had been her. When Ethan woke again, she was there, her hand wrapped around his. "You scared me," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "You scare me more. I've faced mergers, lawsuits, storms, and none of them make me feel the way you do." She tried to laugh, but it broke halfway. "You almost died, Ethan." "I almost lived," he corrected gently. "With you." Lily shook her head, tears falling freely now. "I can't do this. I can't keep breaking the rules for you." He looked at her, eyes heavy but full of something deeper than words. "Then don't. Break them for yourself." That night, she stayed until dawn. She watched the lights spill through the blinds and dance across his face, wondering how something so fragile could feel so infinite. Over the next few days, his recovery was slow but steady. The hospital board noticed her absence from rounds, and whispers grew again. Yet Lily didn't care. For once, the world could talk. She had already decided what mattered most. When Ethan was finally discharged, he asked her to walk him out. They stopped by the hospital doors where they had first met months ago. "Funny," he said, "I came in bleeding, and you stitched me up. But I think you fixed a lot more than my shoulder." Lily smiled, her voice trembling. "You didn't make it easy. Love never is." She froze at the word love, realizing it wasn't something either of them had said aloud until now. He reached for her hand. "I don't want to keep pretending this doesn't exist. Tell me you feel it too, and I'll wait as long as it takes." Her eyes glistened. "I do, but—" He shook his head softly. "No more rules, Lily, just truth." The truth sat between them, raw and beautiful, and for the first time, she didn't run from it. "Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did?" Type forgive if you could. Or never if it would break you too deeply. The following weeks unfolded like a fragile dream. One Lily was afraid to touch too hard in case it shattered. Ethan's health improved, and though he moved more carefully now, the spark in his eyes had returned. Sometimes he'd stop by the hospital, always under some pretense, a checkup, a report, a new donation form, but both knew he came for her. Outside the hospital walls, they learned to exist in stolen moments. Coffee shops tucked into quiet corners of the city. Late-night drives with the windows down, where laughter felt easy and unmeasured. For a woman who had lived her life by rules, Lily found peace in breaking them softly, gently, one heartbeat at a time. And yet, fear never fully left her. She knew the cost of happiness too well, how fragile it could be when weighed against expectations and judgment. One evening, as they sat on a park bench overlooking the city skyline, Ethan broke the silence. "You've been somewhere else tonight," he said. She smiled faintly. "Just thinking. About us? About everything." She paused. "About how it all feels too good to last." He turned toward her, his expression calm but earnest. "Why do you always expect endings, Lily?" "Because happy ones don't usually happen to people like me." He reached out, brushing his thumb along her wrist. "Then maybe we should write our own." For a moment, she believed him. Believed that maybe love didn't have to be perfect to be real. But fate, as always, had its timing. The next morning, Lily was called into the hospital boardroom. The chairwoman's expression was cold. "Dr. Hart," she began, An anonymous complaint has been filed, alleging an inappropriate relationship with a benefactor and former patient. Lily's throat went dry. That's not true, she said, though even she knew that not true didn't matter anymore. We've reviewed footage, the chairwoman continued. You've been seen leaving with Mr. Cole outside work hours, visiting him during recovery, attending events together. We can't ignore this, no matter your intentions. What happens now? Lily whispered. You're being placed on temporary leave pending investigation. Her world tilted, quiet, clean, clinical. The same room where she'd once been celebrated now felt like a courtroom. She walked out without saying a word. The air outside felt too sharp, too heavy. Her career, everything she'd built with her own two hands, now hung in suspension because she'd dared to love. That evening, Ethan came to her apartment, concern etched into every line of his face. Lily, what happened? She didn't look up. They suspended me. What? Anonymous complaint, she said bitterly. Apparently, love is unprofessional. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then I'll fix it. I'll talk to the board, donate more, make this go away. No, she interrupted sharply. That's exactly what they think, that I'm using you. That you're using your power to protect me. Don't make it worse. He stepped closer. I can't just stand by while they tear you apart. Tears welled in her eyes. You can't save me, Ethan, not this time. For a long moment, they stood in silence, two people who had found something rare, only to watch it crumble under the weight of a world that didn't understand. Finally, she whispered, maybe it's better if we stop seeing each other. At least until this ends. He shook his head slowly, heartbreak flickering behind his composure. You don't mean that. She forced herself to meet his gaze. I do. He nodded once, pain tightening his voice. Then I hope you remember, I loved you with every rule broken. When he left, the apartment felt colder. The scent of coffee and rain still lingered, but the warmth was gone. Lily sank to the floor, holding her own arms like she could stop the ache from spreading. For the first time in years, she cried not because of loss, but because she had finally learned what love meant and what it cost. If you believe love still wins, comment Amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. The days after Ethan's departure blurred together. The hospital corridors, once her second home, now felt haunted. Echoes of laughter, conversations, and moments that weren't supposed to happen. Lily tried to stay busy, tried to silence her mind with chores and distractions, but silence always found her in the end. Weeks turned into months. Her suspension dragged on, each day filled with unanswered emails and polite rejections. The medical board moved slowly, but rumors never did. Whispers followed her everywhere. Colleagues who avoided eye contact. Nurses who exchanged quiet looks when she passed. It wasn't just her career on pause. It was her life. Ethan had kept his word. He didn't call, didn't visit, didn't send messages. But every few days, there would be something at her doorstep. A white rose. A handwritten note with no signature, or a book with a line underlined in ink. Some things are worth waiting for. She knew it was him. And she also knew she couldn't reach back, until one rainy night. Her phone rang, an unfamiliar number flashing across the screen. Normally she wouldn't have answered, but something made her do it. Dr. Hart? The voice was shaky, almost desperate. It's from the emergency desk. You were listed as an emergency contact for Mr. Ethan Cole. Her heart froze. What happened? There's been an accident. A car crash. He's in critical condition. For a moment, the world went quiet. Then everything inside her snapped into motion. She was out the door within seconds. No coat, no umbrella. The rain blurred the city lights as she ran through the parking lot, her breath burning in her throat. When she reached the hospital, not hers, but the downtown one, she pushed through the doors with trembling hands, They tried to stop her. But when she said his name, they let her through. Ethan lay in the ICU. Pale, bruised, hooked to machines that hummed in steady rhythm. A bandage circled his head, and one arm was in a sling. For a terrifying moment, he looked lifeless. Lily's knees almost gave out. She moved to his side, her voice breaking as she whispered, "You promised me you'd stay careful." His eyes fluttered open slightly. "I missed you," he murmured weakly. Tears filled her eyes. "You shouldn't be talking right now." He smiled faintly. "You're here. That's all that matters." Hours passed. She stayed by his side, refusing to leave. The nurses whispered among themselves, but none dared to ask her to go. It was as if time had circled back, doctor and patient, hearts caught in between duty and love once again. When morning came, Ethan's condition stabilized. She sat by the window, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. A familiar voice broke the quiet. "Dr. Hart." She turned to see the hospital's chief administrator, a woman she knew by reputation, stern but fair. "I heard about your case," the woman said softly, "and about what you've done here tonight." Lily stood up, ready to defend herself. "Please, I'm not," the woman raised a hand. "Relax. I'm not here to accuse you. I'm here because sometimes rules don't see the full story. You saved his life, didn't you?" Lily hesitated. "I did what anyone would have done." "No," the woman said, her expression softening. "You did what someone who truly cared would do. That's rare, Dr. Hart. Don't let the world shame you for it." For the first time in months, Lily felt something fragile, hope. A week later, she got the call. The board had cleared her name. There was insufficient evidence to continue disciplinary action, they said. "You're reinstated immediately." She didn't cry. She just sat there in stunned silence, realizing that maybe, just maybe, the world hadn't taken everything from her after all. When she went to see Ethan again, he was sitting up in bed, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I heard you got your job back," he said. "I did," she replied softly. He reached for her hand. "Then maybe it's time you stop being my doctor." She laughed through her tears. "Maybe it is." Their hands intertwined, this time without fear. The walls between them were gone, the world still watching. But she didn't care anymore. For the first time, Lily realized love wasn't about breaking rules. It was about finding the courage to live beyond them. And as the morning light filtered through the window, touching their faces in gold, she whispered the words she'd once been too afraid to say. "I love you." "Ethan," he smiled, eyes shining. "Finally. I've been waiting to hear that since the first day you told me no. And this time." Her heart answered with everything it had left. Yes. The sunlight in Ethan's hospital room felt different that morning, softer, warmer, as if even the day itself was holding its breath for them. Lily sat beside him, tracing the faint scars on his hand. Outside, cameras flashed through the glass doors. The world had found their story, Dr. Hart and the billionaire patient. That was the headline spreading everywhere, news outlets, social media, morning shows. Some called it scandal. Others called it love. But to them, it was just real. Ethan noticed her anxious glance toward the window. "Let them talk," he said quietly. "For once, we don't owe the world an explanation." She smiled faintly. "It's not the world I'm worried about. It's us." He reached for her hand. "Then let's promise something. We stay honest. No more running, no more hiding. Whatever comes next, we face it together." She nodded. Together. That word became their anchor in the weeks that followed. Lily returned to her hospital, not as a rumor or a scandal, but as a survivor. Ethan began physical therapy, determined to walk without support before his next business meeting. They both carried their scars differently, hers inside, his outside, yet both had healed in ways no medicine could measure. One evening, As they walked slowly down the corridor where they first met, Ethan stopped. "You know what's funny?" he said, smiling. "If I hadn't gotten sick that night, we never would have met." She laughed softly. "If you hadn't gotten sick, I might still be hiding behind my rules. And now?" She looked at him, her eyes gentle but strong. "Now I've learned that rules keep you safe, but love teaches you why you were meant to risk safety in the first place." He grinned, leaning on his cane. "That sounds like something worth writing on a wall somewhere." She chuckled. "You first." He paused, his voice lower now. "You saved me, Lily. Not just from the accident, not from my illness, from myself. I'd forgotten what it meant to feel human again." Tears glimmered in her eyes. "You saved me too. From a life that was all duty and no heart." They stood there for a long moment, two souls who had walked through judgment, loneliness and pain, only to find peace in each other's quiet presence. The nurse passing by smiled knowingly. "You two look good together," she said. "Like you belong right here." Ethan grinned. "We do, just maybe not in the hospital forever." Lily laughed, the first pure, unburdened laugh in a long time. A few weeks later, Ethan invited her to a quiet event at one of his foundation's new projects, a free clinic for those who couldn't afford medical care. The name on the plaque made her breath catch. The Lily Hart Community Health Center. She turned to him, stunned. "You named it after me?" He smiled a little shyly. "After the doctor who reminded me that kindness still has a heartbeat. And because I wanted the world to know, love can heal more than money ever could." Her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, this is..." He stepped closer, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Don't say anything yet. Just promise me one thing." She looked up at him. "What?" "Promise me you'll stop hiding from happiness." Her voice trembled. "I think I already did." They stood together under the warm evening light, the world still noisy beyond those walls, but for once, none of it mattered. Because this, the quiet, the gratitude, the love, was everything they'd both been searching for. The story that began in a sterile hospital room ended under an open sky, surrounded by the laughter of children and the hum of life. And as they walked hand in hand through the clinic garden, Lily turned to him, whispering, "You know, I used to tell my students never to fall in love with a patient." Ethan grinned. "And now?" She smiled. "Now I tell them, never close your heart to where healing might come from." The breeze caught her words, carrying them into the dusk like a promise. If you believe love still wins, comment amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. And if this story touched something inside you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for those who still believe love can heal what pain once broke. Sometimes one click says, "I felt this too." End of part 8. Love Beyond the Rules.